December 6, 1904, Volume 6. The beginning of eternal beatitude is to lose every taste of one's own. As I continued struggling, blessed Jesus came for just a little, and I saw myself as naked, stripped of everything. Perhaps a soul more miserable than I am cannot be found, so extreme is my misery. What a dismal change! If the Lord does not make a new miracle of his omnipotence to make me rise again from this state, I will certainly die of misery. Then blessed Jesus told me, "My daughter, courage! The beginning of eternal beatitude is to lose every taste of one's own." In fact, as the soul keeps losing her own tastes, the divine tastes take possession of her, and the soul, having undone and lost herself, no longer recognizes herself. She finds nothing else of her own, not even spiritual things. Seeing that the soul has nothing else of her own, God fills her with all of himself and replenishes her with all the divine happinesses. Only then can the soul truly be called blessed, because as long as she had something of her own, she could not be exempt from bitternesses and fears, nor could God communicate his happiness to her. No soul that enters the port of eternal beatitude can be exempted from this point. Painful, yes, but necessary, nor can she do without it. Generally they do it at the point of death, and purgatory does the last job. This is why, if creatures are asked what God's taste is, what divine beatitude means, these are things unknown to them, and they are unable to articulate a word. But with the souls who are my beloved, since they have given themselves completely to me, I do not want their beatitude to have beginning up there in heaven, but to have beginning down here on earth. I want to fill them not only with the happiness, with the glory of heaven, but I want to fill them with the goods, with the sufferings, with the virtues that my humanity had upon earth. Therefore I strip them, not only of material tastes, which the soul considers as dung, but also of spiritual tastes, in order to fill them completely with my goods, and give them the beginning of true beatitude. December 6, 1906, Volume 7. Jesus hides to see what the soul does. Continuing in my state of almost total privation, at the most he comes like a flash or a shadow, I was saying in my interior, "Life of my life, how is it that you are not coming? Oh, how cruel you have become with me! How hard your heart has become as you reach the point of not listening to me! Where are your promises? Where your love, since you leave me abandoned in the abyss of my miseries? Yet you promised me that you would never leave me. You told me that you love me, and now? And now? You yourself told me that it is from one's constancy that it can be known whether one really loves you. And if there is no constancy, one cannot rely on this love. So how is it that you want it from me, who does not form your life, and then you, who are my life, deny it to me?" But who can say all of my nonsense? I would be too long. In the meantime he moved in my interior, raising his arm in the act of sustaining me, and he told me, "I am within you, and I hide more in you to see what you do. I have failed in nothing, neither in promises, nor in love, nor in constancy. If you, imperfect, do it, I do it in the fullness of perfection toward you." And he disappeared. December 6, 1917, Volume 12, the reason why Jesus can never like acts done outside of his will. After having received Jesus in the sacrament, I was telling my Jesus, I kiss you with the kiss of your will. You are not content if I give you only my kiss, but you want the kiss of all creatures. So I give you the kiss in your will, because in it I find all creatures, and on the wings of your will I take all their mouths, and I give you the kiss of all. And as I kiss you with the kiss of your love, so that I may kiss you not with my love, but with your own love, and you may feel the contentment, the sweetness and the gentleness of your own love on the lips of all creatures, in such a way that, as you are attracted by your own love, I may force you to kiss all creatures. But then who can tell all the nonsense I was saying to my lovable Jesus? Then my sweet Jesus told me, My daughter, how sweet it is for me to see, to feel, the soul in my will. Without realizing it, she finds herself at the heights of my acts, of my prayers, of the way I acted when I was on this earth. She places herself almost at my level. In my most tiny acts I enclosed all creatures, past, present, and future, in order to offer to the Father complete acts in the name of all creatures. Not even one breath of the creatures escaped me, which I did not enclose in me. Otherwise the Father might have found some exceptions in recognizing the creatures and all their acts, because they would not have been done by me and have come out from me. He might have said to me, You have not done everything, and for everyone. Your work is not complete. I cannot recognize all of them because you have not embodied them all within you, and I want to recognize only what you did. Therefore, in the immensity of my will, of my love, and power, I did everything, and for everyone. So how could other things outside of my will ever please me, as beautiful as they might be? They are always low, human, and finite acts. Instead, the acts in my will are noble, divine, interminable, and infinite, as my volition is. They are similar to mine, and I give them the same value, love, power of my own acts. I multiply them in everyone. I extend them to all generations and to all times. What do I care if they are small? They are still my acts that are being repeated, and that's enough. And then the soul places herself in her true nothingness, not in humility in which she always feels something of herself. And as a nothing, she enters into the all and operates with me, in me, and like me, completely stripped of herself, not caring about merit or self-interest, but all intent only on making me happy, giving me absolute lordship over her acts, without even wanting to know what I do with them. Only one thought occupies her: to live in my will, praying to me that I may give her the honor. This is why I love her so much, and all my predilections and my love are for this soul who lives in my will. And if I love the others, it is by virtue of the love which I have for this soul, and which descends from her, just as the Father loves the creatures by virtue of the love he has for me. And I, how true it is what you say, that in your will one wants nothing and wants to know nothing. If one wants to do something, it is because you have done it. One feels the ardent desire to repeat your things. Everything disappears. One no longer wants to do anything. And Jesus, and I make her do everything, and I give everything to her. December 6, 1919, Volume 12. In the divine will, the soul gives God the love that lost souls do not give him. In creating man, God left him free and gave him the power to do the good he wanted. I feel no strength to write of my painful fortunes. I will just say a few words which my sweet Jesus told me, and which I wasn't even thinking of putting on paper. But Jesus reproaching me for this made me make up my mind to write them down. Now, I remember that one night I was doing the adoration of my crucified Jesus, telling him, "My love, in your will I find all generations, and in the name of the whole human family I adore you, I kiss you, I repair you for all. I give your wounds and your blood to all, so that all may find their salvation. And if the lost souls can no longer benefit from your most holy blood, nor love you, I take it in their place in order to do what they should have done. I do not want your love to remain defrauded in anything on the part of creatures. I want to compensate, repair you, love you for all, from the first to the last man." While I was saying this and other things, my sweet Jesus stretched his arms around my neck and, squeezing all of me, told me, "My daughter, echo of my life, while you were praying, my mercy was softening, and my justice was losing sharpness. And not only in the present time, but also in the future, because your prayer will remain in act in my will. By virtue of it, my softened mercy will flow more abundantly, and my justice will be less rigorous. Not only this, but I will feel the note of the love of the lost souls, and my heart will feel for you a love of special tenderness, finding in you the love which these souls owed me. And I will pour into you the graces which I had prepared for them." Another time he told me, "My daughter, I love the creatures so much that if in creating the heavens, the stars, the sun, and all nature, I left no freedom to them, so that the heavens cannot add one star or remove one, nor can the sun dissolve or add one more drop of light. In creating man, I left him free. Even more, I wanted him together with me, creating the stars, the sun, in order to embellish the heaven of his soul. As he would do good and exercise himself in the virtues, I would give him the power to form his own stars and the brightest suns. The more good he would do, the more stars he would form. The greater the intensity of his love and sacrifice, the more splendor and light he would add to his suns. And I, spreading myself in the heaven of his soul, would tell him, 'My son, the more beautiful you want to become, the more you please me. Even more, I love your beauty so much that I push you, I instruct you, and as soon as you make up your mind, I run, and together with you I renew the creative power, giving you the power to do all the good that you want. I love you so much that I did not make you slave but free. But alas, how much abuse of this power that I have given you. You have the courage to convert it into your ruin and into offense to your Creator." December 6, 1923, Volume 16, How to Go Around and Fly in the Eternal Volition. The mission of the Most Holy Virgin, the mission of Jesus, and the mission of Luisa for the coming of the kingdom of the divine will upon earth. Difference between the sanctity of the divine will and that of virtues. I was praying, and my sweet Jesus made himself seen in my interior, staring at me. And I, drawn by his gaze, looked at him, down into his interior, which seemed to be like a crystal in which one could see all that my beloved Jesus was doing. And uniting myself with him, I tried to do what he was doing. At other times it seemed to me that Jesus would take my soul in his hands and would throw it in flight into the immensity of his will, telling me, "The newborn of my will, you were born in my will. In it do I want you to live. Fly, fly into the eternal volition. Fulfill your office. See what needs to be done between the divinity and the creatures. Go around all generations, but always in my will. Otherwise you will not find them all. And loving, working, repairing, adoring for all, you will go before the Supreme Majesty, to give it all the love and the homages of all and of each one, as the first newborn daughter of our will." I would start my flight, and Jesus would follow my flight with his gaze. But who can say what I did? In his will I could find all the love which his will was to give to the creatures. And because they would not take it, it was suspended, waiting to be taken. And so I would make it my own, and investing all created intelligences, I would form for each thought an act of love, of adoration, and of all that every intelligence was supposed to give God. And embracing everything within me, as though placing everyone on my lap, I would reach the vault of the heavens to place them on the lap of the Celestial Father, saying to him, "Holy Father, I come to your throne to bring you on my lap all your children, your dear images created by you, in order to place them on your divine lap, so that you may bind and retie once again that will which they had broken from you. It is the little daughter of your will who asks this of you. I am little, it is true, but I take on the commitment to satisfy you for all. I will not depart from your throne if you do not bind the human will with the divine, so that bringing it to the earth, the kingdom of your will may come upon earth. Nothing is denied to little ones, because what they ask is nothing other than the echo of your own will and of what you yourself want." Then I would go to Jesus, who was waiting for me in my little room, and he would receive me in his arms, covering me with kisses and caresses, telling me, "My little one, in order for the will of heaven to descend upon earth, it is necessary that all human acts be sealed and glazed with acts of divine will, so that, in seeing that all the acts of the creatures are covered with its will, drawn by the powerful magnet of its own volition, the supreme will may descend upon earth and reign in it. You, then, have been given this task, as first newborn of our will. Know that in order to draw the Word and make him descend from heaven, my mamma took on this commitment to go around all generations, and making all the acts of human will her own, she placed the divine will in them, since she possessed so much of this capital of the supreme volition as to surpass all that all creatures together would possess. And for every round she made in it, this capital multiplied. And so I, eternal Word, in seeing that one of our most faithful creatures had covered, with so much grace and love, all the human acts with the divine will, taking to heart all that was needed in order to do this, and in seeing that our will was present in the world, drawn, descended from heaven. The second commitment befitted me in order to form redemption. How much I had to go around, across all human acts, as though taking them all in my hand and covering them, sealing them, glazing them with my divine will, in order to attract my celestial Father, making him look at all the human acts covered with that divine will which man had rejected, into the celestial regions, so that my divine Father would open the gates of heaven, which had been closed by the human will. There is no good which does not descend by means of my will. The third one is yours. It befits you, firstborn daughter of our will, to add the third seal of our will upon all human acts to the first and the second, in order to obtain the coming of the kingdom of the divine will upon earth. Therefore go around, my daughter, over all the human acts of creatures. Penetrate into the hearts. Bring to each heartbeat the heartbeat of my will. To each thought the kiss, the knowledge of my will. Impress the omnipotent Fiat in every word. Invade everything. Overwhelm everyone with it, that my kingdom may come upon earth. Your Jesus will not leave you alone in these rounds. I will assist you and guide you in everything. And while he was saying this, I continued my flight, going around everything and everyone. But who can say what I did? Jesus alone can say it, who made me do it. So I spent a night always with Jesus, and while going around, I would bring him now all thoughts, now all words, now works, steps, heartbeats, all invested by his will. And Jesus received everything with love and made feast. Then he said to me, "Do you see what great difference exists between the sanctity in my will and that of other virtues? The first one is to receive in every instant the currents of grace, of light, of love, and in each one of her acts, the creature remains in order with her Creator. Therefore it is the sanctity which is closest to her Creator. The second, that of the other virtues, exists in time and circumstances, whenever the occasion occurs to exercise now patience, now obedience, now charity, and the like. And if occasions do not come about, the virtues remain interrupted and without growth, and cannot receive the good which a virtue in act contains. On the other hand, in the sanctity of my will there are no stops or interruptions. My will is always fixed on darting through the creature. She can receive it in every instant, whether she breathes, thinks, speaks, palpitates, takes food, or sleeps. Everything enters my volition, and in every instant she can be filled with my will along with all the goods it contains. December 6, 1925, Volume 18. The true living in the Supreme Will is precisely this. Jesus must find everything and everyone in the depth of the soul, and with her love, everything must be bound in the soul. Communion of goods in the divine will. Example of the starry heavens. I was doing in my interior my usual acts in the supreme volition, embracing all creation and all creatures, in order to make all of their acts my own, and requite my God with my little love for everything he has done in creation and for everything that all creatures should do. But while I was doing this, a thought told me, "You take so much time in doing this, and what is the good that you do? What is the glory that you give to your God?" At that moment, my sweet Jesus moved in my interior, and stretching out his arms, he seemed to want to embrace everyone and everything. Then raising them up, he offered everything to his celestial Father. And then he said to me, "My daughter, The true living in the supreme will is precisely this. I must find everything and every one in the depth of the soul. Everything that my will has issued in creation for the good of creatures must be bound in the soul with her love. By living in my will and by her requital of love, she is already bound to and in possession of all that my will has done and will do. And she loves as my will loves and can love. So, given all of this, by her living truly in it, and having bound everything to herself, I find in the soul the starry heavens, the refulgent sun, the vastness of the seas, the prairies of flowers. I find everything in her. Therefore, is it not right that the soul, hopping from one thing to another over all that is mine and hers, recognize it? And that playing upon all created things, she impress on each one of them her kiss and her little I love you for the one who has created so many things to give them to creatures as gifts, displaying to man, by this, a variety of love for as many things as he created, and how he loves that man be happy, giving him not only what is necessary, but also the surplus? But this is not all. Not only must I find the whole creation, but the true living in my will binds everyone, and therefore I must find in the soul, as though in act, Adam holy, as he came out of my creative hands, as well as Adam guilty, humiliated, and crying, so that she may bind herself to him in the state of sanctity, and taking part in his innocent and holy acts, she may give me glory and make the whole creation smile again, and sharing in his tears, with him she may long for that Fiat rejected, which had caused so much ruin. I must find in her the prophets, the patriarchs, the holy fathers with all their acts. And if those longed for the Redeemer, you will long for my supreme Fiat, has the triumph and fulfillment of their sighs. I want to find my inseparable mamma with all her acts, in which my will operated so many portents, having full dominion. I want to find all of myself and all my acts. In sum, I want to find all my things, all that belongs to me, all that my supreme will has done and will do, because these are all things which are inseparable from me, and it is just and necessary that they become inseparable from one who lives in my will. So if I do not find everything, it cannot be said that she lives completely in my will. And in looking at her, I do not find in her all of my things, but I see them scattered outside of the soul, and I cannot receive her requital of love for all that belongs to me. Have I perhaps not created the creature so that she be a little world and a little God? This is why I always say to you that the living in my will is not yet known, and I keep teaching you now one thing, now another, and I expand your capacity so that all my things and all the good which my will has issued may enter into you. I want to hear you repeat to me your requital of love in everything that belongs to me. I do not tolerate for one who lives in my will not to know all of my things, and not to love them and possess them. Otherwise, what would be the great prodigy of living in my will? After this, my sweet Jesus remained silent, and I wandered in the divine volition. Oh, how I would have wanted to place my loving and grateful kiss upon all created things, and my little I love you on all the supreme acts of the divine volition, so as to remain bound, I to them and they to me, to be able to surround my Jesus in me with all the acts of the eternal will. At that moment I saw the starry heavens, and my lovable Jesus resumed his speaking. My daughter, look at the heavens. What order, what harmony among the stars! One star cannot be without the other. They are so bound together that each one sustains the other. Each one is the strength of the other. If, and may this never be, even a single star moved from its place, there would be such confusion and disorder in the atmosphere that there would be the danger for everything to end up in ruin. So, all the beauty of the heavens lies in the stars remaining each one in its place, in the common union, and in the communicative and attractive force which they have among themselves, and which, more than electricity, keeps them suspended and bound to one another. Man is the new heaven, more than the heavens above the earth. It can be said that each creature is an animated star. That which the first man, Adam, did, up to the last one who will come, everything was to be in common among them. So man was to possess, not his own strength alone, but the strength of all. All goods were to be in common among them. My will, more than electricity, was to bring the bond among them and the communication of all that is good and holy. And even though each man was to do his own office and occupy himself with different actions, since all were to start from the primary point of my will, all were to be converted into light, and therefore each one was to be light for the other. Therefore my sorrow in seeing this heaven of creatures messed up was so great as to be incomprehensible to human creatures. Once my will was removed, which binds everyone and links everything, entered disorder, confusion, disunion, weakness, darkness. Poor heaven of creatures, it can no longer be recognized, and only the living in my will reorder this heaven again, and will make it shine with new light. This is why I tell you that I want to find everyone and everything in you. My will, primary act of all celestial and terrestrial creatures, will bring you the communication of all their acts, and you will remain bound to them, and they to you. So the living in my will encloses everything and everyone. Therefore be attentive, for I want to give you the greatest thing that exists, but I want from you great things and highest attention. One who gives much, much wants to receive. December 6, 1926, Volume 20, Pact Between Jesus and the Soul. How an act can only be called perfect when the divine will reigns in it. This morning it seemed that my always lovable Jesus did not make me struggle so much for his coming. Even more, he spent a long time with me, which he had not done for so long. In fact, if he comes now, his little visit is always very short, nor does he give me time to tell him anything. He alone says what he wants to tell me, or he speaks and speaks with the endless light of his volition, so much so that Jesus himself remains eclipsed in this light, and I with him. And so we both lose sight of each other because that light is so strong and dazzling that the littleness and weakness of my sight cannot sustain it. Therefore I lose everything, and also Jesus. Now, while he was with me, the fidgets of his love were such and so many that his heart was beating very strongly. Leaning his chest upon mine, he made me feel his ardent heartbeats, and drawing his lips close to mine, he poured into me part of that fire that was burning him. It was a liquid that, while being like liquid fire, was so very sweet, but of a sweetness that cannot be described. However, among those rivulets that poured into my mouth, coming out of his mouth like many little fountains, there were some bitter rivulets, that the human ingratitude was sending deep into the heart of my sweet Jesus. Jesus had not done all this for a long time, while before he used to do it almost every day. Now, after pouring himself out with me, after pouring into me what he had in his most holy heart, he said to me, "My daughter, we must make a pact, that you must do nothing without me, and I must do nothing without you." And I, "My love, it is beautiful. I like this pact, to do nothing without you. And when you do not come, what shall I do? So I must remain idle and without doing anything? And then you place your will in me, and I am unable to will anything but what you want? So you will always win, and will do whatever you want, and without me." And Jesus, all goodness, resumed his speaking. "My daughter, when I do not come, you must not remain without doing anything. No, no, you must continue doing what we have done together, what I have told you that I want you to do. This is not doing things without me, because it has already passed between me and you, and it remains as if you were always doing it together with me. And besides, don't you want me to always win? The winning of your Jesus is your gain. So if you win, you lose. If you lose, you win. However, be certain that I will do nothing without you. This is why I placed in you my will, and with it my light, my sanctity, my love, my strength, so that if you want my light, my sanctity, my love, my strength, you may dominate in them and take the light you want, and the sanctity, the love, the strength that you want to possess. How beautiful it is to see you possess my dominions that make me reach the extent of doing nothing without you. These pacts I can only make with one in whom my will dominates and reigns." Then after this I was doing my usual acts in the supreme Fiat, and I thought to myself that I wanted to hide my little love, my meager adoration, and everything I could possibly do within the first acts that Adam did when he possessed the unity of the light of the divine will, and within those of the Queen Mamma that were all perfect. And my adored Jesus added, "My daughter, only when an act encloses within itself all other acts together, then can it be called perfect. And my will alone encloses this perfect act, that while it does one act alone, all possible and imaginable acts that exist in heaven and on earth gush forth from this single act. This single act of my will is symbolized by a font. While the font is one, from it gushes seas, rivers, fire, light, heaven, stars, flowers, mountains, and earth. Everything comes out of this one font. Now Adam, in the state of innocence and the height of the sovereign queen, by possessing my will, if they loved, in that love they enclosed adoration, glory, praise, blessing, prayer. Nothing was missing in their littlest act. In it flowed the multiplicity of the qualities of the single act of my supreme volition that made them embrace everything, and so in one act they gave to their Creator whatever befitted him. So if they loved, they adored. If they adored, they loved. Isolated acts that do not embrace all acts together cannot be called perfect. They are meager acts that give of human will. And therefore only in the Fiat can the soul find true perfection in her acts and offer a divine act to her Creator. December 6, 1927, Volume 23, State of the Soul. How sorrow and bitternesses do not enter the divine will because they are human births. The divine way. how the divine will has its life in the midst of creatures and how they hamper it, how each act done in it is a divine signature that circulates. Example: I continue in my abandonment in the divine Fiat, and since I was totally without my highest good, Jesus, I felt such bitterness and sorrow that I am unable to express it. But at the same time I felt imperturbable peace, and the happiness of the light of the supreme volition. So I thought to myself, what a change in my poor soul! Before, if blessed Jesus deprived me of himself for a little while, even just for hours, I was restless. I raved. I cried. I felt myself the unhappiest of creatures. Now all the opposite. I am without him, not for hours, but for days. And even though I feel an intense sorrow penetrating deep into the marrow of my bones, yet it is without restlessness, without delirium, without being able to cry, as if I had no more tears, all peaceful, intrepid, and happy. Holy God, what change! At the thought of being happy without Jesus, I feel myself dying. But my happiness is not touched. I feel that happiness leaves sorrow free, and sorrow leaves happiness free. Each of them follows its course, its way, and has its place, but they do not mix together. Ah, Jesus, Jesus, how can you not help me? Don't you have pity on me? How can you not run, not fly to her, the little daughter of your will, whom you said you loved so much? But while I was pouring out my sorrow, he just barely moved in my interior and told me, "Daughter of my will, why do you want to trouble your peace, your happiness? Know that where my will reigns, it is like a noble divine queen. It possesses immense joys and happinesses without end. Sorrow, tears, bitternesses are born in time, all births of the human will. They are not born in eternity, nor are they births from it. They are limited and finite. Therefore they do not have the power to enter even slightly into the sea of the happinesses of my divine volition. This is the divine way, and in this state did the Queen of Heaven and my very humanity find themselves. All our sorrows, and they were so many and of all kinds, could not decrease nor penetrate into the summit of our endless joys and happinesses. So before, your restlessness, your tears and disturbances when you would not see me for a little while, were the remains of your human will. But mine does not admit these weaknesses, and since by nature it does not possess them, wherever it reigns, it dominates sorrow as queen. It makes it circulate, but it does not permit that it enter into its happiness, with which it has filled its creature by reigning in her. Sorrow would not find the place in which to put itself within the endless sea of the happiness of my adorable will. Do you perhaps not want it to reign in you, that you become worried about the change you feel within your soul? My divine will has its life, and when the soul opens the doors of her will to let it enter and dominate, it enters into the soul and carries out its life in her, fully divine. And queen as it is, it forms in her its life of light, of peace, of sanctity, of happiness. And the creature feels all of its goods as her own properties. And if she feels sorrow, she feels it in a divine way that brings no harm to all that my divine will has communicated to her. On the other hand, with one who does not open the doors to it, to let it enter and dominate, its life remains suspended in the creature, hampered and without being carried out. It happens to my divine Fiat as it could happen to a creature who wants to bring all goods to another creature. and this one with horrendous ingratitude binds her feet and her hands in order not to let her get close. She closes her mouth so as not to let her speak. She blindfolds her so as not to be looked at. Reduced to such a state, how can she do to her the good she would want to do? If the other one binds her feet in order not to let her get close, her hands so as not to receive the good that she is bringing to her, her mouth so as not to let her tell her what she is bringing, her eyes so as not to be drawn by her gazes to open the door to her. What sorrow would this not be for the bearer of so much good? In this state is my will put by creatures, when they do not open the doors of their will to let it carry out its life. What sorrow, my daughter, what sorrow! After this I continued thinking about the divine will, bearer of so much good, and my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, my love for one who lets my divine fiat reign and dominate is so great that for each act she does in it, the divinity surrenders a divine right to the soul, that is, a right of sanctity, of light, of grace, of happiness. And with these rights, it binds the soul and renders her the possessor of divine goods. So, each additional act done in my divine volition is a signature that is executed by your Creator, as if he were writing for you the deed to render you the owner of his happiness, of his light, his sanctity, and grace. It happens as when a rich man loves a poor lady who never goes out of his house, and if she goes out it is only to visit the properties of her lord, to bring to her lord the fruits of his farms, so as to render him happy with his very goods. The rich man looks at the poor lady. He becomes fond of her. He sees her happy in his house, but in order to be sure of her happiness, he writes a public deed of donation of his goods to the poor one who has wounded his heart, who remains always in his house, and uses his very goods to make her beloved lord happy. So it is for one who lives in our divine will. She lives in our house. She uses our goods to glorify us and make us happy. The disparity between her and us would cause us pain. It would weigh upon our paternal heart. But since no pains or unhappinesses can enter our divine volition, we act with magnanimity. At each act of hers we place our signature, writing the deed of donation of our goods to make her happy and rich of our very happiness. This is why I repeat to you often, be attentive, my daughter, let nothing escape you, because each of your acts in our will are signatures that circulate, and divine signatures with which it is assured that the divine will is yours and that you belong to it. Divine bonds never fail. They are eternal bonds. December 6, 1931, Volume 30, Good of the Prolixity of Time. How God counts the hours and the minutes to fill them with graces. One who does the divine will tears the veil that hides her Creator. Bath of light that the divine will gives. I was feeling oppressed because of the privations of my sweet Jesus, and as though tired of my long exile. And I thought to myself, I would never have believed it, a life so long. Oh, had it been shorter, as for many others, I would not have gone through so much. But Fiat, Fiat. I felt that my mind wanted to make nonsense. Therefore I prayed Jesus to help me, and I swore to him that I want to do always his adorable will. And the sovereign Jesus, dispelling the darkness that surrounded me, made his little visit to my soul, and told me with unspeakable tenderness, "Good daughter, courage. Since your Jesus wants to give you more and receive more from you, I permit the prolixity of time. There is no comparison that holds between one who has given me proofs for a few years and one who has done so for long years. A prolonged time always tells more. More circumstances, more occasions, more tests, more pains. And remaining faithful, constant, patient in so many circumstances, and not for a little while, but for a long time. Oh, how many more things does this tell? You must know that each hour of life under the empire of my divine will is new divine lives that one receives, new graces, new beauties, new ascendancies before God, corresponding to a new glory. On our part we measure the time, what we give, and we wait for the requital of the act of the creature in order to give again. And for the creature it takes time in order to digest what we have given, and therefore let her take another step toward us. If she adds nothing to what we have given, we do not give immediately, but we wait for her act in order to give again. So there is nothing greater, more important, more pleasing before us than a prolixious life lived in a saintly way. Each hour is already one more proof of love, of fidelity, of sacrifice that she has given us, and we count even the minutes, so that not one of them be not filled with graces and with our divine charisms. With a short life we can count few hours, and we cannot give her much. Therefore, let me do. And I want you to be happy with what I do. And if you want to be happy, think that each hour of your life is a pledge of love that you give me, that will serve to bind me to love you more. Aren't you happy? After this I was continuing my acts in the divine will, and I felt upon me the empire, its immensity that overwhelmed the whole of me within it. And my beloved Jesus added, "Beloved daughter of my will, to live in it means to recognize its paternity. And as she feels herself a daughter, she wants to be close, clasped on the knees of her Father, and live in his house, and by right, because she recognizes herself as a birth from he who, with so much love, generated her and delivered her to the light. And she looks at all other things as extraneous, and without the sweet bond either of paternity or of relationship. So she sees with clarity that by going out of the house of her father, she would be a lost daughter who would have not even a nest in which to form her abode. And this is why one who does and lives in my divine volition tears the veils of our power and finds that her Creator powerfully loves her and draws her, creature, with his power to make himself powerfully loved. Tearing the veil, she finds the sacrarium of the divine power, and she fears no more, because if he is powerful to love her and to make himself loved. And loving with powerful love, she becomes daring and tears the veil of the divine wisdom, of goodness, of mercy, of love, and of justice, and finds as though many divine sacraria that love her wisely, and with a goodness most tender and excessive, united to mercy unheard of, they love her. She finds the overflowing love that loves her immensely, and since the divine being is order, he loves her with justice. And the creature, moving from one sacrarium to another, not outside, but inside of these veils, feels the reflections of her Creator, and she loves him wisely, with good and tenderness, united to mercy that Since her God has no need of it, she turns for the good of all generations. And feeling the love that overflows within her bosom, oh, how she would want to melt herself in love in order to love him. But justice, preserving her, gives her the just love, as much of it as is possible for creature, and it confirms her in life. My daughter, how many things do these veils of our divine qualities hide? But to no one is it given to tear these, our veils, except to one who does and lives in our will. She alone is the fortunate creature who sees her God not veiled, but as he is in himself. And because we are not recognized as we are in ourselves, they have such low and perhaps even distorted ideas of our Supreme Being. And this is because, not having our will in them, they do not feel within themselves the life of he who created them. They touch our veils, but not what is inside, and therefore they feel our power as oppressive, our light eclipsing, as though in act of moving them away from us and putting them at a distance. They feel our sanctity veiled. That makes them feel ashamed and discouraged. They live immersed in their passions. But it is all their fault, because there is a sentence pronounced by us in the terrestrial paradise. Here one cannot enter. This is a place only for those who do and live in our will. And therefore the first creatures were put out, placing an angel as guard to prevent their entrance. Our will is paradise for creatures, terrestrial on earth and celestial in heaven, and it can be said that an angel is placed there to guard it. One who does not want to do it, and does not want to live in its arms and live common life in its house, would be an intruder if he did so. But he cannot do it either, because our veils become so thick that he would not find the way to get in. And just as an angel forbids him the entrance, so another angel guides and gives the hand to one who wants to live of our will. Therefore content yourself with dying 1,000 times rather than not doing our will. You must know that our will is all eyes over the happy creature who wants to live of it, and as she does her acts, it gives her its bath of divine light. This bath refreshes her and makes her feel the divine coolings. And since the light, as it forms by its own nature, produces fecundity, sweetnesses, flavors, colors within its veils of light, so while in appearance it seems only light, inside it hides so many beautiful riches and innumerable qualities, such that no other element can be said to be similar to it. Even more, it is from the light that they implore the fecundity and the good that each element must do in the order in which it was placed by God. The light can be called the soul of created things, symbol of our uncreated light, of our divine fiat that animates everything. So with this bath of divine light, as she is about to do her acts in it, the soul feels herself being sweetened, balmed, fortified, purified, and invested by the beautiful rainbow of the divine colors that render the soul so graceful, striking, and beautiful that God himself feels enraptured by a beauty so rare. This bath of light is like the preparation to be able to cross the thresholds and tear the veil that hides our divine being to the human creatures. More so, since it is our interest that one who lives in our will be like us, and do not a thing that would be unworthy of our majesty thrice holy. Therefore think that it is a bath of light that my will gives you every time you dispose yourself to do your acts in its interminable light, so that you may be attentive to receive it. December 6, 1932, Volume 31, Value of an act done in the divine will. How it becomes powerful over everything, and is the only all-doer who moves everything so as to make her Creator loved. My abandonment in the Fiat continues. Its enrapturing strength sweetly enraptures, invests, and absorbs. And my little soul feels little, hardly an atom. Yet it feels its immensity that has not been given to it to contain in its little circle. But in spite of my littleness, it does not want to be idle. It wants to love, to bless, to glorify, to thank He who loves it so much that He has given His very divine will to her at her disposition. But while my mind was lost in it, my celestial sovereign Jesus, visiting my little soul, told me, "My daughter, you cannot understand the complete value that an act done in my divine will contains. So much is its value, its greatness, that the same creature who has done it cannot enclose it completely inside of her. She is filled, and not being able to contain it, it overflows outside and runs in the same immensity of the eternal Fiat. And everything that it envelops and encloses in its immensity repeats the same act of the creature, so that if you love, adore, bless me, thank me, you give the large field to all created things to repeat your act, in a way that the heavens and earth, the sun and wind, seas and rivers, plants and flowers, all in chorus say, "We love you, we adore you, we pray you," and so forth. It is as one echo that resounds in everyone and everything, and with its investing strength that my will possesses, it absorbs and makes all things undergo the same act that the creature has done in my will. And oh, what a sweet surprise, what marvelous enchantment, that an act reigns over everything and makes its act repeated by every one. This little atom that enters into our volition becomes powerful over everything, and sweetly feeds her same act to everyone in order to make her Creator loved. Therefore our Supreme Being feels that the creature who enters into our volition moves everything. She makes her voice run in all things, and, not wanting to be alone, she invests, reigns, and makes all things invested by the Fiat say what she wants. Does she want love? Then she makes all things say love. Does she want to adore, to bless? Then everything lends itself to adore and to bless. In sum, she is the commander over all creation, and we let her do it. It is our same volition that wants what she does, and its same power, its empire with which she was invested. And we delight so much in seeing the littleness of the creature run in our immensity, and we feel the company of the creature, because keeping each other company means recognizing each other, that we are already together with her, to recognize the act that she does, its value, so that she can tell us how much she loves us, because the more she knows that her act is great, the more she gives us, and the more we feel ourselves loved, and the more we love her. So she alone is who comes from earth to break our solitude, and the only all-doer who wants to move all things to love us, bless us, and thank us. It is true that other creatures are in our divine will, but not knowing that we are with them and for whom they work and the value of their works, they live as strangers and as far from us. And this is a great sorrow for us, to have children, to keep them in our house, that is, in our will, as if we did not have them, and they do not recognize He who gave them life and loves them so much. This does not happen with one who already knows she lives in our will. We know each other. We live as between children and father. Rather, she lives in us, and we in her, and we form one single will. December 6, 1937, Volume 35. As the creature lives in the divine volition, Jesus rings his little bell to call the residents of heaven and those of earth. How the divine love urgently needs the company of the creature. I feel his life within me overflowing with love, and as it moves, it pours out seas of love that, investing all, says to every heart, "Please, look at me, know me, receive me in your hearts, let me dominate. I come loaded with all my goods to live together with you, but alas, I am not recognized. They even reject me. And since I am not known, my laws of love are not in force for them. My goods remain with me, and I am not able to give them to my children." Then I was following the acts of the divine will, and as I arrived at the blue vault dotted with stars, I called with me the residents of heaven and the residents of earth, so that together we could repay, with our little love, the love of God, who with so much love had created the expanse of the heaven to cover us and hide us inside his love. All of us, with no exception, have the duty to love the one who loved us so much. Now, as I was doing this, my highest good, Jesus, visiting my little soul, all love, told me, "My blessed daughter, if you only knew with what love I was waiting for you to call everyone, to feel within your act the return of love from all. As soon as you start to call, I ring the little bell to the celestial residents and to those of the earth, and I stop ringing only when I see that all of them have run into your act. The first ones are the celestial residents who, living in my will, cannot and will not put themselves aside. They feel the unifying divine will that unites them in that act. Even more, they anxiously await my call to be able to return my love. Since the one who is calling them is a creature from earth, who possesses her own free will, they feel that they can give me new love through her. Oh, how they rejoice at the sound of my little bell, flying to place themselves within that act of the creature who wants to love me. As for the residents of the earth, it happens that they barely hear the vibrating sound of my bell, because not all of them live in my will. When I see them all together in that act, our divinity places itself, all attentive, in loving waiting. And oh, how beautiful it is to hear in that act innumerable voices saying to us, "We love you, we love you, we recognize you in your works, how much you loved us. So for everything we return your love." Our Supreme Being, wounded by so many voices, pours out more seas of love, covering and investing everyone with such joy and happiness that all remain enraptured, enjoying one more paradise by means of this creature. The one who lives in our will gives us the field for new works, and makes our love gush out more strongly. Not being able to contain it, we pour out new seas of love to love the creature and to be loved. Oh, how much we love her. You must know that the thing most urgently needed by our Supreme Being is the company of the creature. We do not want to be the isolated God, or to keep her far away from us. Isolation has never brought great works or happiness. Company matures the birth of good and makes the most beautiful works arise to the light. This is why we created so many things, to have the opportunity to have her company many times for as many created things. And since we always remain in the act of doing what we did once, the one who lives in our will accompanies us, always. She receives our creative act, and we receive the glory and the return of created love. Therefore we keep her company in the celestial spheres, in the shining sun, in the blowing of the wind, in the air that all breathe, in the murmuring of the sea. Everywhere and in every place she follows us, she defends us, and returns love to us. She cannot live without us, without loving us, and we cannot be without her, so jealous we hold her tightly to our divine womb. Then he added, the company of the creature is so dear to us that we form with her our recreation. We make the most important decisions for our glory and for the good of the human generations. We accomplish our designs while being in her company. Our love rises to new life and keeps making up new devices of love and new surprises in order to chain the creature to our love, always and more. If it wasn't for her company, with whom could we pour ourselves out? Over whom could we form our designs? Where could we place our ever-rising love? Without the company of the creature, our goods would be depressed, without being able to give life to what we want to do for love of the creatures. See, then, how necessary her company is to our love, to our works, to the fulfillment of our will. End of December 6th. Fiat.